Hi, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, Perfect Prey. I'm glad you're here. My name is Dr. Christine Marie Cocchiola, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and have a doctorate in clinical social welfare, where I researched coercive control and the impact on both adult and child victims. Most importantly, I am a survivor and a protective parent. Victims and survivors of coercive control are never to blame. But I chose the name Perfect Prey because coercive controllers, who are individuals who apparently have characterologically disordered personalities, do choose who to prey upon. They choose people who tend to be agreeable and conscientious, perhaps loyal to a fault, fixers, optimistic, and empathic. Or these coercive controllers prey upon those who are most vulnerable, including our children. It's part of their plan to gain control. How do we help our children when they're experiencing systematic, unacknowledged child abuse? We need to understand how these coercive controllers, harmful individuals, attempt to exert their power over us and our children. We need to look beyond a trauma-informed lens, but also layer it with a coercive control lens. So, let's engage in personal power conversations that will create the protective parts that will derail the coercive controller from his plan. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Perfect Prey. As so many of you know, I have been trying to elevate the experiences of children who suffer coercive control, narcissistic abuse, call it what you may, and their family system, and then what it's like for these children when they are forced into the care, whether it's part-time or full-time, of this abusive parent, and how traumatic that can be for children. I'm, of course, completely honored today to have Maya Laing here with me today. As you may recall, she and her brother Sebastian suffered significant abuse, I would say coercive control, by the family court system and other court professionals who decided that it was in Maya and Sebastian's best interest to be returned to the care of the parent that was abusive to them. And that happened forcibly, and that was about creating a space where they had to go to a reunification camp to reunify or repair with that parent. And I will say, as an advocate doing this work since the age of 19, a therapist, a researcher who understands the traumatic experiences of children, when we think about attachment, whether a child is accurate or inaccurate in how they feel about a parent, if we rip them from the parent that they feel a strong attachment to, we are harming them. That's what it comes down to. We are entirely harming them and creating a trauma that is so preventable, and the systems are complicit. So again, I have Maya Laing here today. She is 18 years old. She's finishing up her senior year in high school. She's a teen advocate who has exposed the dangers children face when reporting abuse in child custody cases. After she and her younger brother were forcibly taken to a court-ordered reunification program, she began to speak out online and gained support until she was eventually able to get away from her abuser and return to home. Welcome, Maya. Thank you so much for being here and being willing to share a little bit of your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about how you see this began? One of the things I ask children, adults who were children experiencing this, what was it like growing up in that family system where you experienced trauma, we'll say, and abuse? Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, mostly it was very isolating. Like, we were trapped in that house with her, and it was not really a place we could have other people over. Like, friendships were not something we were supposed to have people over. Is sort of like we were a second thought to whatever she was going through. So it was like our mom would be having her migraines and stuck in her room and locked in there, and then we would just sort of have to do our own thing and not disturb her and not become an issue. And then whenever she was with us, it was just like a strange dynamic of her either treating me like an adult when I was only like 11 and acting like I was just one of her friends doing her things with, or treating me like I was a kid who couldn't understand anything. And it just sort of flip-flopped between that. So I don't know, it's just like strange, might not be the right word, but just not a caring
Yeah.
place, but like safe to actually ask for help or really be myself.
I think what you're highlighting is the parentification of children when they grow up in family systems where they don't have a capable parent and they actually get put into the role of caretaker, right? And then there's neglect around that. It's really, I think, remarkable that as a child you felt that. It's like you felt like it was strange because it is strange. Your body was telling you this doesn't feel right. Yeah, you had some very good intuition, it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Yeah, then it would also be with my brother because she made him into sort of like this, like, little child even when he really wasn't, and would have me sort of having to take care of him also and make sure that he was okay. Like, he had a bunch of allergies, so I would always have to be the one who's like, "Does the babysitter know this? Does the babysitter know that?" And take care of him and make sure that he was okay too, because she
Yeah.
wasn't really around to take care of him either.
Hmm. Yeah, and this was while you were also having visits with your dad, or is this while that everybody was together?
This was more in the when we were actually all together because my dad was there, and it was nice when we were with him, but he was also busy at work and stuff like that. And then she was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom, but she wasn't really, and it was more babysitters taking care of us and her, like, locked in her room or leaving us at, aftercare at school.
Okay. All right. All right. And then when they divorced or were they ever married? What was the situation?
Then when they divorced, I don't know, it wasn't like they ever really fought in front of us or anything like that. It was just kind of, like, silent sitting in the house because they were never really, I don't know, like a super happy marriage, I guess, and never really that connected. So then it was just sort of just kind of quietly sitting in there. And we were all for a while living in the same house. So it was me and my brother in one house, and they each had their own houses. So they would switch off and
Gotcha.
help them there. And then, yeah, I don't know. During that, I pretty much just like dived into trying to ignore everything and like reading and painting and trying to pretend like nothing was happening.
Hmm. Hmm. And then when the divorce happened, you ended up living with your dad and not wanting to visit your mom as much, right?
Yeah, well, initially it was 50-50, and then at a point, she was just talking so horribly about him and trying to make it seem like he was such a dangerous person, and just, like, whenever we were over at her house, it was just so uncomfortable and awful that eventually we stopped going over there. Because initially we were doing 50-50, um, and then it just got to be too much, like, her and her girlfriends would just be constantly calling him this sort of dangerous criminal person, which he's not.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's really where we see, we call it parental coercive control, right? Where your mom was almost coercing and controlling you to feel a certain way about your dad that you actually truly loved and you were attached to. And, that's like, it just, we call it sometimes, some of us in the field, like say it's almost like a cult. It's like the person's trying to program you to feel a certain way about a parent that you don't feel that way about, right?
Yeah.
And so at some point you said, you basically told your dad, you were younger, you told your dad you didn't want to go anymore to her house, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit how it went from that, where you kind of went from 50-50 to not going as much. Here she is trying to program, right? And then from there, how it went to you weren't going at all. And now all of a sudden you're engaged in family court, and family court is requiring you to reunify with her.
Yeah. Well, when we initially left, I didn't really think that we wouldn't be going back. I thought that it would be just sort of like a wake-up call for her to get her stuff together and, like, actually pay attention to us when we were there and not just sit us in front of the TV for 12 hours a day. But then the second we stopped going and we're like, "We're not gonna go," then a switch flipped, and she, like, would not let us back into her life ever again, even if we wanted to. Um, and she just the second we pushed her away at all, she pushed back 10 times harder and wouldn't let us back in and just made it this awful escalating situation where everything got worse and worse.
So she wouldn't let you go back to her house.
No.
She felt like you rejected her, so therefore she was going to cut off all contact, basically.
Yeah, except for through forced therapy within the court. So the only way she
Interesting.
would see us was
So you were willing to see her. You were willing to, occasionally visit her and have time with her, but she was so upset by the fact that you were living with dad and that you were putting up boundaries, right?
yeah,
That she just went right from one extreme to the other extreme, it sounds like. It sounds like it got
yeah,
extreme pretty quickly.
yeah, well, we would try and go on the phone with her and call her and be like, we wanna talk about this. We want like, you're still our mom. We still love you. We want to talk about this. We want to figure this out." And she would just not listen and not take any sort of accountability for anything she'd ever done. Um, and then one time we even tried to go over to her house and we're like, "We wanna see you. We wanna get some of our stuff from here." And she, during that time, had apparently locked herself in a hotel room, and so we were on the and had hired bodyguards to protect her for some reason. So we were on the phone with her, like, crying and sobbing, being like, "We're at your house. We want to get some of our stuff," because she had changed the lock. So we're like, "Just let us in to get some of our stuff. We wanna see you. We want to talk to you." And she just would not, and she was sitting on the phone just calm while we were sobbing at her.
Wow. Yeah.
S There's, like, a series of events like that where we would reach out and try and get some of our stuff or talk to her or do anything like that, and she always escalated it into something where that wouldn't work. Uh,
What you're pointing out is something that I hear over and over again, like from like children who like go to their old house to get some of their personal items, and rather than the other person really just saying, you know what, these things matter to my children, and maybe right now they don't want to have a strong relationship with me, and I can work on that, but I really need to give them back their personal items. That would almost help the repair, right? That would almost make things better. But these people tend to be very much drawn to conflict instead of actually trying to figure out. I mean, here you are, by the way, children. You're not adults. And those are your personal items. And abusers do this a lot where they will covet the personal items of the victims and just as a way to like retain control. And again, I go back to it's all coercive control, right? It's like instead of creating a dynamic where we can communicate and I'll give you your things and maybe we can go for coffee next week, and talk about this. Or maybe we never talk about any of it again, but we start right from here and we really just have a space of we're just going to try to start fresh, but it may not be as close because we never dealt with the bad stuff, but that's okay. We can still have a surface relationship. Abusers are not willing to tolerate that.
yeah. No, she was not willing to take anything other than, like, us apologizing to her and that
It was your fault.
it was our fault and we lied about everything is basically the only way she would let us have any sort of relationship with her.
Mm,
Then with the stuff, like, that was something that she did use a lot to sort of make it seem like her house was better than it was, is she would not take care of us, not spend time with us, but then she'd give us 15 minutes a day and the credit card to go to the mall and get a whole bunch of stuff or go get candy and junk food and everything, and watch TV and all that. So it was just kind of
mhm.
constant vibes to keep us happy, but it wasn't actually attention or any sort of actual real human caring.
Yeah, no, like you said, bribes. Some people call it like bait and switch. I'm going to bait you, like, yeah. And then all of a sudden you're going to have to be nice to me or you're not going to be able to complain about me, right? Because I've given you so much. I have, one of my podcasts is called The Lure of Tweens and Teens because abusers will often try to lure the kids in with whatever they want, right? 15 minutes on a credit card is a lot of time for a kid in the mall, you know? Yeah. So, okay, wow. So then basically what she did is elevate very quickly though to this getting the court involved.
Yeah, no, pretty
Yeah.
much
Can you tell us
immediately
a little bit
wanted
about.
our first time with a reunification. Well, I'm not sure if it was even a reunification therapist. It was something like that, where the court ordered us into talking with these people. And during the first session that we had with, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was a reunification therapist, some sort of therapist that we were forced to go see. She basically just sat there and the therapist like attacked us and she just sat there and like would not even look at us, I don't think.
The
And
therapist attacked you?
yeah, pretty much. They were just like, why are you doing this to your mom? Like,
Mhm.
all things like that. And
Yeah. Yeah, so I actually offer a clinician attorney coach training because I think I'm a therapist, right? And what happens is, like, if the therapist doesn't understand that that's your mom's, that's how she operates, right? This is who she is, and that you guys are just defending yourselves.
Mhm.
But it sounds like she didn't understand that. It sounds like she was accusing you. Would you
Yeah.
just like talk about, I mean, my gosh, for you to be sitting in that session with someone you didn't feel comfortable with and then having a therapist trying to hold you accountable, your children, for an adult's actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
makes me pretty outraged, actually.
yeah, so that therapist, we only actually went for one session with that one because it just collapsed so much. And then there was a period of time in between that where I think they had us see a custody evaluator or something. Elizabeth Lee, who's a local um, person who basically sets up for like intensive reunification camp by doing these reports. And so they had us see her, and during those meetings, she was just trying to get all this information. And then in the end, in her report, she twisted everything into being our dad's fault and saying that it was him who made us report all these things. And yeah,
Basically calling him an alienator.
yes, yeah, accusing
Right.
him of that and
Right.
calling our mom the victim, essentially, when it
Mhm.
was her who was the problem.
Right. Right. We hear of this happening so much in family court, right? Abusers will claim that they're the victim, right? So they deny, attack, reverse victim and offender, Darvo, right? We know it's as Darvo. And then in that, the person who really is the safe, protective parent is the one who has to fight to keep the children protected, which doesn't make any sense, especially since you weren't, it wasn't like you were 5 years old expressing this, right? I mean, you were an adolescent who had voice and should have been able to be heard. Did anybody ever ask you? Like, I mean, the custody evaluator did, but did anybody, did a judge ask, like, Maya, what do you want? Sebastian, what do you want?
No, well, we told them anyway, and then they were like, "Well, never mind, we don't care."
Hmm.
So yeah.
Wow.
Ask well, in the beginning with the second reunification therapist we had, Regina Marshall, she sort of pretended like, "Oh, I'm gonna be on your side, I'm gonna defend you, I'm gonna make sure that you get what you want and you have rights in this." And then she used that just as a basis to have more of our trust, while she also
Mm.
went after us and was on our mother's side the entire time and defending her. And yeah,
Do
just
you do you have any theories about why people aligned with mom, even though you were very clear and your brother was very clear? Like, do you have any theories about that?
Well, I think it basically comes down to the money because she was the one who would keep them employed and keep paying them, and they were getting paid a lot to do all these sessions, and my dad didn't want to continue them, and she did. So
Mm.
keeping going, keeping the conflict going was keeping them having more sessions, and yeah.
I thought that was going to be your answer. I just,
Yeah.
sadly, this is what we keep hearing, right? There's so much money to be made in the process. And that, do you even need a custody evaluator in these types of situations? But yeah, so, all right. So then you're living with your dad and your mom gets a court order
Mhm.
that
For
you
us.
have to go to reunification camp. And you guys found out how? How did your dad found out? Like he got notification, he let you know?
Well, I think we just overheard it, actually, because he wasn't supposed to tell us.
Got it.
Um And we could sort of see because I'd been like in the days before, I was like researching this because I was like, what are they talking about? What are they trying to do to us? And every story, news article that I found, which there weren't very many, but everything I saw was like, this is an awful thing that you need to do everything you can to avoid.
Right. Mhm. So you were prepping yourself for the worst case scenario, knowing that your dad couldn't share with you what was going on and knowing that this could just happen on like a surprise. You would just, and that's exactly what ended up happening.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. In the days before, we could sort of tell it was ramping up. There was this big court date coming up. So I did start posting videos online talking about our experience with some of these professionals, like our lawyer and the reunification therapist that we initially had in Santa Cruz, just to try and put something out there. Because what I'd seen was basically kids are taken and then they're gone, and no one even knows what happened or what was going on beforehand. And I didn't want to go quietly, I guess, if they were going to take us.
Right.
Um, so then it got to the court date, and I decided that I was going to testify. So I went in front of the judge and in front of our mom and her lawyer and my dad and told the court everything that she had done to me. And then the court, well, first off, then her lawyer and her passing notes back and forth just attacked me and called me a liar and everything else. And the court basically sided with her and decided that I was lying, even though I wasn't. And the police had literally opened a forensic investigation about what we had reported and interviewed us and everything else. And yet the court decided that we were liars and needed to go to a reunification camp. And so that's what they ordered. And then the next day is when we were forcibly taken by transport agents.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so here you are trying to advocate for yourself, and the reality is like after that hearing, like, knowing that your character is being attacked on the stand, would you want to even go with this other person? I mean, again, if you really want a relationship with your children, you don't attack them. You don't keep their personal items. Like, there's just so many other ways to do this, but it just shows, I think, over and over again, the character traits of these individuals. They actually can't even see what they're doing to contribute to the problem. And,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and so your bravery to speak out about it online and to start and to do the research to kind of say what's going to actually happen to me and how is this going to impact me and my brother? And you were right there, trying again to take care of your brother, as I'm sure you've done, as you said, much of your life.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot. It's a lot, and it makes me think of I wrote a co-authored a book called Framed, Women in the Family Court Underworld. And it highlights women's experiences. We know this happens to men, but it highlights women's and children's experiences because women in general tend to be more vulnerable in society than men, right? But one of the stories, the last story in the book, the mom lost custody to a reunification camp, and it went from the week to 90 days to 6 years. She
Yeah.
did not see her children for 6 years. And since the book has been published, her son and her daughter, now over 16, got their license, drove 3 hours to see her. But otherwise, she hadn't seen them in 6 years. So it's just devastating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So many of these cases, people don't get away and don't.
No, they don't. And the reality is that you end up getting taken by these transport agents who are hoodlums, frankly, who are doing their job, but they're hoodlums. Um, and of course, how traumatic is that? And then you do end up getting away. Can you tell us a little bit about how that? I know you can't necessarily give us details, but just can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, just it reached a breaking point of living with her, and me and Sebastian together decided that we needed to get away. And so in the middle of the night, we got up, like I'd put on the washing machine the night before so she wouldn't be able to hear us sneaking out. And then at like 1 a.m., we snuck out of the house and ran away. And past that, I can't really say anything. But
No worries, no worries. But so basically, after the reunification camp, you went through the process of the reunification camp and then went to live with her. So you went through the deprogramming experience that people talk
yeah,
about. Can you?
after
Yeah.
yeah, it was 4 days with Lynn Steinberg in LA. So it was just like sessions all day, and the transport agents were with us the entire time. So the people who had just beat us up were literally sleeping in the same bedroom as us. And so we were in this Airbnb with our mom and then going to reunification camp every day. And so we would go in, and the first day I basically had a panic attack because I was like holding on to Sebastian because I didn't want to let go of him, my brother. And then they were like, no, you can't sit together. You have to sit in separate chairs. And I panicked. And then from there, it was just them having us tell what happened again and them immediately just calling us liars
Right.
and sociopaths and saying, "How could you do this to your mother? You're hurting her. You're evil, awful people. How dare you do this to her?" Um, and just attacking us, and also attacking us for what was being said online, because people had posted the video of us being taken. And so Lynn Steinberg and our mom were getting like attacks and threats online because they had taken us and had essentially just been kidnapped. So people were reacting to that. But then in these sessions, they would use all those comments and be like, "Look at this. You caused all these people to come attack your mother." Um,
Everything
and
was your fault.
yeah,
Everything was your fault.
yeah.
So
They
you
would,
get harmed by transport agents, right?
mhm,
And then you go away and then they basically they verbally assault you and also trap you. You can't leave. It's entrapment. It is another form of course, it's coercive control, right? They're trying to control everything and they're trying to coerce the way you think and feel about
mhm.
things. It is like a cult, honestly.
And then they would play like in the end, after they had, because we never said that we lied about what happened, because I was not willing to do that because we didn't lie, and I was not going to put that out there with the cameras sitting in the office staring at us. And so what we did end up saying, just because there was not another way out of it, was, we're sorry we hurt you," and just apologizing and being like, "We just wanted to go back to normal. We love you, mom." Like all these sorts of things that were not true at that point, but were sort of the only way out of
Mhm.
that situation. And then also they made us write these letters. And I think they also had us take videos with the transport agents, basically being like, "We're sorry. Um, we attacked you," even though they were literally the ones who grabbed us because we fought back. And so they had us like write apology letters where we're like, "I'm sorry I hit you back after you grabbed me." Um, and all this sorts of stuff to protect them. And
Wow.
yeah. um,
Oh, there's no concern for the welfare of the child. There's only concern about making money and having a good reputation. Like, that's all that matters. Yeah.
exactly.
Wow. Maya, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Uh,
and so you were able to sneak away and get back to a safe place, and, but I always, like I go back to for me, my mind always goes back to the time you were away from your dad, the safe place, and all of the experiences in between. I'm so glad you're back, right? I mean, I'm so glad you had the ability to sneak out and to get to safety. But and then so we're celebrating that, right? We're
mhm.
celebrating that. But who's held accountable for what you experienced?
Well, our mom, 100%. It was could not have happened without her. She was the one who went that far in the court and supported all these therapists. And then it's also all the therapists, Lynn Steinberg and Regina Marshall, who kept meeting with us and kept
Right.
pressuring us and telling us we had to stay hidden. And
Mhm. Guess I mean, like, yes, they should be held accountable. But are they by this like, do we actually right? I mean, what's the repercussions for their horrific behavior?
yeah, there's been absolutely no repercussions for anyone, our mother or these therapists or the judge. The judge is, I believe, still a judge in Santa Cruz County hearing cases.
It's
Lynn
insane.
Steinberg is still practicing. I think she moved to Canada, but she's still a reunification therapist. And Regina Marshall, as far as I know, is also still a reunification therapist with absolutely no consequences whatsoever for what happened.
So, if anybody is listening and they're either afraid that this is gonna be happening in their life, or they are a parent who is thinking about doing this, right? Because they want their children back in their life. What would be your messaging for them? What would you want to tell them?
Well, for any parent thinking about doing this is not going to get your kids back. And even if it forces them back to your house, the second they turn 18, the second they have a chance to get away from you, they will, and they won't look back. And you won't have any chance of having a real relationship with them after you've broken trust at the level that this entails.
Perfect.
Then, yeah, for any kid, just keep fighting it. And I guess don't go quietly because there are people who do care, and not everyone is as crazy as the people in the family court system. Most people do see that it's wrong what's happening. Yeah, I
Find
guess.
your support network, right? Because you're proof that the louder people are, the more they're heard, right? And some people don't feel like they can speak out, but I think you took that and it worked for you, thankfully. I mean, I guess I'm not sure it would have worked if you hadn't been able to sneak out of the house, but I'm really grateful that there hasn't been, obviously at this point you're safe where you are and no one's trying to kidnap you again.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And for my parents who are listening, who basically are like, they're the protective parent and the child has been indoctrinated against them. And they want their children to go to repair therapy. They want their children to reunify with them. I go back to exactly what Maya's saying is that if we force that, if we attempt to deprogram the way a child is programmed in some way, if we force it, they're not going to come back to you willingly. And they will try to leave that relationship, escape it as soon as they can. Our best avenue is to just be present and available in a way that is accepting of them and not retaliatory or angry. It just has to be that they know that we're just waiting. And so if you're one of these parents who's suffering and misses your children terribly, know that there's a way around this that is not to inflict further harm onto your children with repair or reunification therapy. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Maya, for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was great talking to you.
You are a hero for many young people. Thank you for listening to Perfect Prey. You can find the show on my website at iknowyourheart.com or coercivecontrolconsulting.com, or subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcasts. I'd love your feedback, and I'm always looking for ideas on how to continue to expose coercive control as the significant harm and child abuse that it is. The best way to support the show is to rate and review Perfect Prey on Apple Podcasts. It helps others to find us. Perfect Prey is written by me, Dr. Christine Cocchiola, and with the help of my amazing assistant, Sheena Pastor. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.